He walked into the apartment smelling of a perfume that wasn't hers and announced he had slept with his boss and had no regrets. Olivia simply finished setting the dinner table, in silence, feeling the weight of her 7-month-old son in her belly, a weight that suddenly seemed to be the only real thing in that Chicago apartment. His indifference was a cold weapon, pointed directly at the future they had sworn to build together. He watched her, waiting for an explosion, a scene, anything that would allow him to call her crazy. But she didn't give him that satisfaction. Her silence was the first crack in the perfect world he thought he controlled. The evening began in a mundane, almost pathetic way. His cell phone, a modern device she had chosen for him as a gift on his last birthday, vibrated on the dark wood of the coffee table. Ryan and Olivia were watching some generic streaming show, one of those American sitcoms that served only as background noise for the growing silence between them. She didn't have a habit of spying. She never needed to. Trust for Olivia was the foundation of everything. But the insistent, almost anxious vibration of the device made her eyes drift from the screen. He didn't move. He kept his gaze fixed on the television, but his jaw clenched for a microsecond. A spasm almost imperceptible to the world, but an earthquake to her who knew every one of his tells. With the naturalness of someone merely adjusting an object out of place, she stretched out her arm and turned the screen toward herself under the pretense of checking the time. And then the air left her lungs. It wasn't a metaphor. It was a physical reaction, a vacuum in her chest. The notification on the locked screen was a punch to the gut. "Tickets in hand, my love. VIP section just like you deserve. The last show of our lives. Meet me there. Kisses, Chloe." A red heart pulsed at the end of the message. Chloe, the ex-girlfriend, the shadow Ryan swore he had dispelled, but which, Olivia knew, still haunted the darkest corners of their relationship. The woman who called at inconvenient hours, who showed up at the same restaurants, who commented on all his photos with an intimacy that stung. The same Chloe who, upon running into her at the grocery store weeks earlier, looked at her belly with poorly disguised contempt and said, "Babies, such a permanent way to trap a man, isn't it?" Ryan finally turned, his face a mask of false tranquility that wouldn't fool anyone. He saw her face, the pallor, the way her hand rested over her belly, an instinctive gesture of protection. He sighed, a theatrical sound, the sound of a man preparing to minimize a hurricane. "Honey, before you think anything," he began, but his voice already carried the guilt. Olivia said nothing. She just held up the phone, the screen still lit, and stared at him. Her silence was more accusing than any scream. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she once found charming and which now made her nauseous. "Look, it's the final freight farewell show. You know what that band means to me. It's a teenage thing, an old dream. Chloe got the VIP tickets. That's all it was. A favor." The word favor came out twisted, implausible. Olivia felt a metallic taste in her mouth. "A favor," she repeated, her voice low, controlled. "The woman who spends her days trying to undermine our marriage, who treats me like an obstacle, does you a favor and you accept. You're going to a concert with her, Ryan, now with me 7 months pregnant?" The logic was so clear, so irrefutable, that his response seemed even more insane. He stood up, starting to pace the living room, an animal caged by his own lie. "It's not with her, Olivia. It's about the show. It's their last tour, the last one. I've waited for this my whole life. It's just one night. One night isn't going to destroy our family. Stop being dramatic." Dramatic. The word hit her with the force of a slap. He was invalidating her feeling, her intuition, her pain. He was turning the imminent betrayal into her childish whim. Right there, in that instant, while he gestured about the importance of a 90s rock band, something inside Olivia solidified. It didn't break. It didn't crack. It froze. It transformed into something hard, cold, and incredibly clear. She watched him, no longer as the passionate wife but as a strategist evaluating an opponent. He was weak, driven by a puerile selfishness and a desperate need to feel young and desired again. And Chloe was the easiest path to that. Olivia leaned back on the sofa, her hand still on her belly. The baby moved, a gentle ripple, a reminder of what truly mattered. She took a deep breath, and when she spoke, her voice was devoid of any emotion, Fine, Ryan. If it's that important to you, go. He stopped in the middle of the room, surprised. He expected a fight, tears, pleas. Her surrender disarmed him. Seriously? He asked, a relieved smile beginning to form on his lips. Seriously, she confirmed, her gaze empty. Just don't be late. He approached, tried to kiss her, but she subtly turned her face and his kiss landed on the air near her cheek. He didn't seem to notice, or didn't care. The euphoria of getting what he wanted was too great. You're the best, honey. I swear it's just the show. Tomorrow everything will be back to normal. He went to the bedroom, whistling a band melody, the energy of a teenager about to meet his girlfriend. Olivia remained motionless on the sofa, listening to the sound of the shower. No, she whispered to the empty room. Tomorrow, nothing will be normal anymore. The plan was not yet formed. It was just a mist of fury and determination, but she knew, with a certainty that chilled her skin, that revenge would not be a dish served cold. It would be a feast, and Ryan would arrive for dinner without knowing he was the main course. While the shower water fell, muffling Ryan's cheerful singing, Olivia got up. She moved with a terrifying calm through the house that, until a few hours ago, she called home. Every object seemed strange, distant. The framed photo on the shelf, with their wedding picture, looked like a scene from an old movie about someone else's life. She went to the kitchen, opened the refrigerator, and took out the bottle of sparkling water he always took in the car. Then, she opened the medicine cabinet. Her eyes passed over the antacids, painkillers, prenatal vitamins, and stopped at a small box at the back of the shelf, a potent laxative which the doctor had prescribed for her grandmother months ago during a visit. Use with moderation. This is very strong, the doctor had said. Olivia opened the box. The plan began to take a grotesque and visceral form. She didn't just want his night to be bad. She wanted it to be a physiological hell, a humiliation that would mark him from the inside out. With steady hands, she dissolved a double dose of the powder into the water bottle, gently shaking it until the liquid looked pure and harmless again. She placed the bottle back on the counter, exactly where he would grab it before leaving. Her heart wasn't racing. Her breathing was regular. There was a frigid clarity in her mind, a surgical precision in her actions. It wasn't hatred she felt. It was something deeper, more primitive. It was the instinct of a female protecting her young from the predator she herself had let into the house. Ryan came out of the bedroom wearing a faded black t-shirt with the band's logo. Wet hair, a triumphant smile on his face. He looked ridiculous, a man nearing 40, about to be a father, regressing to a teenage fan to impress his ex-girlfriend. He grabbed the water bottle from the counter, took a generous gulp, and grimaced. Wow, this carbonation is strong today. Olivia, standing in the kitchen doorway, just watched him. Must be the new batch, she said, her voice neutral. He shrugged, put the bottle in his backpack, and grabbed his car keys. Well, I'm heading out. Don't wait up for me, okay? Love you. The phrase love you came out of habit, empty of meaning, an automatic punctuation mark at the end of a sentence. He leaned in to kiss her again, and this time she didn't flinch. She let his lips touch her cheek. His skin was cold, or maybe hers was burning. He left, closing the door behind him. The sound of the lock clicking echoed in the silence of the apartment. Olivia stood there, motionless for a long time, just staring at the wooden door. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just felt the baby move again, a small life oblivious to the storm that had just been unleashed. The night was just beginning. And she knew that for Ryan, the final freight farewell show would in fact be the end of an era. The end of everything he knew. The door closed, and the sound of Ryan's car engine fading in the distance was the signal. Olivia didn't allow herself a second of hesitation. Time now was her most precious resource and her greatest enemy. The frigid calm that had dominated her gave way to a feverish urgency, an energy that came from a deep place of self-preservation. The plan, once a mist, now unfolded in her mind with brutal clarity. The first call was to her sister, Jenna, the only person in the world she would trust with the naked truth. Jenna, I need you, now. There was no need for explanations. Jenna, on the other end of the line, heard the tone in Olivia's voice and responded with a simple, "I'm on my way." The second action was to open her laptop. The website of a 24-hour emergency moving service, the kind that handles corporate emergencies and evictions, shone on the screen. The form was impersonal, direct. Pickup address, destination address. The destination address was her grandmother's vacant apartment in a different part of Chicago, a place the family kept for emergencies, and which, at that moment, would become her sanctuary and headquarters. She filled in the details, entered the number of Ryan's secondary credit card, an irony that brought her a flash of dark satisfaction, and checked the maximum urgency option. The confirmation arrived by email in less than a minute. Team en route. Estimated time of arrival, 45 minutes. 45 minutes. That was all she had to dismantle a life. Olivia moved through the apartment not as a wounded wife, but as a worker on a demolition line. The target was clear: erase herself from that place. She started with the bedroom. She opened the closet and her fingers passed over her own clothes, pieces chosen together, birthday gifts, the dress she wore on their first date. There was no time for nostalgia. She grabbed 2 large suitcases and began to fill them methodically. Underwear, the most comfortable pieces that would fit her changing body, the flat shoes. Next, the bathroom, her toothbrush, face creams, prenatal vitamins. Everything that was hers went into a toiletry bag. His side of the cabinet, the expensive cologne he used, the hair gel, the aftershave, she left untouched. She wanted him to find the scene exactly like this. One side of the mirror empty, the other perfectly tidy, as if a ghost had just said goodbye. The baby's room almost ready was the hardest part. The crib assembled, the small clothes folded, the Star Mobile hanging from the ceiling. For an instant, her legs gave way. She leaned on the dresser, her breath short, her hand pressing her chest to contain a wave of pain that threatened to rise in her throat. The tears didn't come. She swallowed them, turning them into more fuel. With renewed fury, she disassembled what she could, packing the clothes and baby shower gifts into cardboard boxes she found in the utility area. That room, the symbol of a shared dream, would no longer belong to that house. Jenna arrived like a silent hurricane, her eyes wide at the state of the apartment. My God, Liv, what did he do? The usual, Jen, but this time was the last, Olivia replied, without stopping folding a blanket. Jenna asked no more questions. Immediately she began to help, following her sister's lead with a tacit efficiency. They worked in a silence heavy with meaning, a choreography of complicity. While Jenna finished boxing up the kitchen items, only the ones Olivia had bought, Olivia went to the home office. She turned on Ryan's computer. The password, the name of the dog they had at the beginning of their relationship, worked as always. She quickly navigated through the files, ignoring the work folders and going straight to what mattered: bank statements, investments, passwords saved in the browser. With a flash drive, she copied everything. Every document, every receipt, every trace of the financial life he tried to keep partially obscure from her. It was the ammunition she would need for the war to come. The doorbell rang. It was the movers, 3 uniformed men with impassive faces, accustomed to scenes of rupture. "Ma'am," said the team leader, "you can take everything in boxes and suitcases, and the furniture from the baby's room. The rest stays." The men began the work with impressive speed, and the apartment began to empty, the soul of the place being torn out piece by piece. Olivia stood in the middle of the room, watching the crib being carried away. It was the end. The real, physical end of her life there. And as the men passed her carrying the wreckage of her marriage, she felt her phone vibrate in her pocket. It was a message from an unknown number, a photo. The image was grainy, taken from afar, but unmistakable. Ryan and Chloe at the entrance to the VIP section of the concert. He was laughing, his arm around her waist, her head resting on his shoulder. The intimacy was palpable, brazen. Below the photo, a single sentence: "Thought you'd like to know who your husband is really dreaming about." Olivia didn't need to wonder who had sent it. It was a low blow, calculated to hurt her. But the person who sent the message didn't know they were just throwing gasoline on a fire that was already consuming everything. Olivia saved the photo, archived it in a secure folder in her email, and sent it to her lawyer with the subject, "Additional Evidence." The pain didn't paralyze her, it only focused her even more. Back in the apartment, the last mover left, closing the door behind him. The place was strangely silent and vast. The echo of Olivia and Jenna's footsteps on the hardwood floor was the only sound. Where there was once a home, now remained a set. An empty stage, waiting for the final act. Olivia walked through the living room, her eyes passing over the sofa where she froze when reading the message, over the coffee table that still held the mark of Ryan's phone. Every square foot was a ghost. Jenna approached, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "It's over, Liv. At least this part." Olivia nodded, but her gaze was distant. "Not yet," she said, her voice low. "His part is missing." She took out her phone and opened the banking app. With a few taps, she transferred a significant amount from the joint account to her personal account, enough to cover the rent of her grandmother's apartment for a year and all the initial baby expenses. She didn't take everything. Just what was fair, what she knew she could legally defend as her share and a provision for the child on the way. Then she opened her email and fired off the final message to her lawyer, attaching the statements and a cold, detailed summary of the night's events. The subject was simple: initiate contested divorce proceedings, urgent protective order, abandonment of home and dependent pregnant wife. Every word was a shovelful of dirt on the coffin of her marriage. The next step was the hardest. She went to the front door. Jenna watched her, not understanding. Olivia took a small metallic object from her bag. It was a new high-security lock, which she had asked her sister to buy on the way. "Help me here," she said. Together, with a screwdriver and a quick YouTube tutorial, the two sisters, one 7 months pregnant and the other with a face stained with supportive fury, changed the lock on the main door. The final click of the new piece fitting into place was a sound of liberation. It was definitive. He could no longer enter. The house, legally still his too, had become an impenetrable fortress. Olivia's last act in that apartment was to go to the window of the master bedroom, the window that overlooked the building's front lawn. With a strength she didn't know she possessed, she began to take Ryan's clothes from the closet, the designer shirts, the expensive suits, the Italian shoes, and throw them out the window, piece by piece. A rain of fabric and leather fell onto the well-kept grass. Jenna, upon seeing the scene, was first shocked, then a slow smile spread across her face. She joined Olivia, and the two, in an act of silent catharsis, emptied his side of the closet. Shoeboxes, belts, the watch collection. Everything was thrown out, forming a humiliating and pathetic pile under the street lamp on the lawn. "Done," said Olivia, her breath ragged, her body aching from the effort. "Now it's over." They grabbed the last suitcases, left through the back door to avoid being seen, and got into Jenna's car. As they drove away, Olivia didn't look back. She didn't need to. The image of that pile of clothes, the epitaph of her marriage, was etched in her mind. At the stadium, the concert dragged on for Ryan like an endless fever. He spent more time in the foul-smelling corridors leading to the restrooms than in front of the stage. Every time he tried to return, a new wave of nausea or a paralyzing cramp forced him to retreat. He became a familiar figure to the security guards, the pale guy who keeps running to the bathroom. Chloe, meanwhile, had given up on him. She was dancing, filming with her phone, immersed in the experience she believed she had orchestrated. Ryan's presence had become an annoyance, a dissonant note in her perfect night. He was a smelly, sweaty reminder that reality rarely cooperates with fantasy. The show ended with an apotheotic encore and a shower of confetti. Ryan watched from afar, leaning against a wall, feeling completely drained, both physically and emotionally. The dream of a lifetime had turned into a succession of bathroom stalls. Chloe found him at the exit, her face a mixture of irritation and pity. "You look awful," she stated, the obvious sounding like an accusation. "I told you I'm not well," he replied, his voice weak. The crowd pushed them out, a river of sweaty, happy bodies. In that flow, squeezed against each other, Chloe held his face. Look, the night was a disaster because of you, but it doesn't have to end like this. And then she kissed him. It was a quick kiss, tasting of beer and frustration. Ryan, in his confusion and exhaustion, responded for an instant. It was a pathetic gesture of trying to save something, anything from that ruined night. If I hadn't gotten sick, it would have been perfect, he lied, his voice muffled against her lips. We'll do it again. Chloe smiled, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Sure, we'll do it again. But both knew it was a lie. The moment had passed. The forced magic had dissipated. They separated in the parking lot. Chloe went to her car and Ryan dragged himself to his. As he sat in the driver's seat, the smell of his own sweat and sickness enveloped him. He felt dirty, humiliated. The euphoria of the morning had turned into a moral and physical hangover. He drove home in a state of stupor, his head throbbing, his stomach still churning. The only thing that comforted him was the idea of getting home, taking a hot shower, and collapsing into his own bed. He imagined Olivia sleeping, maybe a little angry, but she would forgive him. She always forgave him. She was the pillar, the constant in his life. He needed that constancy now more than ever. He parked the car in the garage, the building's silence enveloping him. He went up in the elevator, each second increasing the anticipation of being home. He reached the door, put the key in the lock, and it didn't go in. He frowned, confused. He tried again, forcing it a little. Nothing. The key wouldn't turn. It seemed to hit solid metal. That's weird, he muttered. Maybe the lock was jammed. He tried the other key on his keychain. The result was the same. Frustration began to bubble beneath the exhaustion. He knocked on the door, first gently. Honey, Olivia, open up, the key isn't working. Silence. He knocked harder, the sound echoing down the empty hallway. Olivia, it's me. Open the door. Nothing. Just the hum of the hallway light. A cold anxiety began to creep up his spine. He took a step back, looking at the door as if seeing it for the first time. And that's when he noticed. The lock wasn't jammed. It was different. The metal was shinier, the shape slightly distinct. It had been changed. The blood froze in his veins. Why? Why would Olivia change the lock? A terrible, absurd thought crossed his mind. He ran to the hallway window, which overlooked the same front lawn area, and then he saw the pile. His clothes, his shoes, his things thrown onto the grass like trash. The shirt he wore to his best friend's wedding was on top of a crumpled shoebox. The suit his mother gave him was tossed over a bush. Reality hit him with the force of a physical impact. He was breathless. It wasn't a problem with the key, it wasn't a whim. It was a declaration. The sight of that pile of belongings on the lawn didn't immediately process in his mind. For a long second, Ryan just looked, his brain trying to connect the image with reality. It looked like a movie scene, a bad joke. But the coldness of the lock under his fingers and the deadly silence coming from inside the apartment were real. Denial was the first to arrive, a warm wave of disbelief. This couldn't be happening. Olivia wouldn't do this. Not his Olivia, the calm, predictable woman, the foundation of his life. He turned to the door again, adrenaline starting to overcome exhaustion and sickness. Anger came next, an explosion that made him punch the solid wood. The pain in his knuckles was sharp, but distant. Olivia, open this door now. What kind of joke is this? His voice came out hoarse, desperate, breaking the building's night silence. He waited, his chest heaving, listening for any sound, a step, a muffled voice. Nothing. The silence was the cruelest answer. It was a wall, impenetrable and absolute. He grabbed his phone, his hands shaking so much that he missed the unlock pattern twice. He called her. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times, and went to voicemail. Her recorded voice, cheerful and inviting, was torture. Hi, you've reached Olivia, leave your message. He called again, and again, and again. Each unanswered call was a hammer hitting the last nail in the coffin of his hope. It was then that his body betrayed him once more. The combination of extreme stress, residual alcohol, and the laxative still in his system converged into a new and violent urgency. A searing cramp doubled his body over. He leaned against the hallway wall, sweat pouring down his face, the need for a restroom becoming the only thing in his universe. The desperation changed tone. It was no longer just about getting into the house. It was about physiological survival. He was locked out of his life and at the same time a prisoner of his own bowels. The humiliation was total. He looked at the neighbors' doors. Knock on Mr. Henderson's door, the retired man on 4B, or the new family on 4D. The image of himself, smelling of sweat and sickness, begging to use a neighbor's bathroom while his clothes were thrown on the lawn, was unbearable. The shame paralyzed him more than the pain. He couldn't do that. He couldn't give them that spectacle. There was only one option, a place where anonymity was guaranteed, where no one would judge him. The late-night diner on the corner. A simple, familiar place that stayed open late. With a groan, he moved away from the door, abandoning the battle for an instant, and ran. He ran awkwardly down the hallway, took the emergency stairs because he couldn't wait for the elevator, and burst into the cold night. The sight of his clothes on the grass hit him again, this time under the yellowish streetlight. It looked even more pathetic. He looked away and kept running, his body on fire, his mind in tatters. He entered the diner like a fugitive. The waiter, a middle-aged man with a tired face, looked at him with a mixture of alarm and disgust. Ryan didn't care. "Restroom," he gasped, the word coming out like a tear. "I need the restroom." The waiter pointed to the back of the room without saying a word. Ryan crossed the space, feeling the eyes of the few remaining customers burning into his back. He locked himself in the small stall, the physical relief mixing with an overwhelming wave of self-pity. Sitting there in the cold, disinfectant-smelling bathroom of a corner diner, the penny finally dropped. This wasn't a passing drama. It wasn't a fight that would be resolved with an apology and a bouquet of flowers. It was the end. Olivia had erased him, excluded him. The precision, the speed, the brutality of it all. It wasn't the Olivia he knew. Or maybe he had never truly known her. He had underestimated the woman he shared a bed with, the woman carrying his child. He saw her as a safe harbor, a certainty. It never occurred to him that harbors can also be dredged and abandoned. In the middle of his collapse, his phone vibrated in his pocket. With still shaking hands, he picked it up. It was a message from her. His heart gave a painful leap. Maybe it was a request to talk, an explanation. He opened the notification. The words on the screen were short, clinical, and more devastating than any scream or accusation. "I hope the show was everything you dreamed of. While you were living your dream, I moved out. I want nothing more to do with you. Enjoy your new life with Chloe. As for our son, you will only have contact through the courts. And don't forget, your financial responsibilities as a father start today. My lawyer will be in touch." The words didn't form a paragraph. They were short sentences, each a blow. There was no emotion, no anger. It was a statement, a memo of dismissal from his own life. He read the message once, twice, 3 times. The letters danced in his blurred vision. The sound in his ears turned into a high-pitched ringing. He didn't cry. The shock was so deep that it dried his tears before they could form. He just stayed there, staring at the screen, the smell of the bathroom mixed with the stench of his own failure. The message was a masterpiece of calculated cruelty. She mentioned the show, his dream, turning it into a weapon. She mentioned Chloe, validating the betrayal he hadn't even actually consummated, but which he had already committed in intent. She spoke of the child, turning fatherhood into a legal obligation, not a bond of love. And the final blow, the lawyer, the word that raised a wall of bureaucracy and hostility between them. He was alone, completely and irrevocably alone. The man who hours earlier felt like the king of the world was now reduced to a human wreck, hidden in a diner bathroom, with a phone in his hand that contained the death sentence of his family. He tried to call her, driven by blind panic. The call was instantly rejected, blocked. He was completely isolated. The door to his old life was not just locked, it had disappeared. Time lost its meaning inside that bathroom stall. Ryan remained seated, the phone still in his hand, the dark screen reflecting his pale, empty face. The ringing in his ears had subsided, replaced by the dull beat of his own heart. Each pulse was a reminder that he was still alive, although he felt hollow inside. The physical humiliation had passed, leaving behind only a deep weakness in his limbs and a coldness that didn't come from the room's temperature. It was an internal coldness, starting in his stomach and radiating to his fingers and toes. He finally stood up, his legs unsteady. He looked at himself in the cracked mirror above the sink. The man staring back was a stranger. Red, sunken eyes, skin with an oily sheen of sweat and stress, the band t-shirt crumpled and stained. The image of the euphoric teenage fan from the morning seemed like a cruel joke. He splashed cold water on his face, the shock of the liquid helping to minimally anchor him in reality. He needed to get out of there. He needed to think. But think about what? Every path his mind tried to trace led to a wall. Home, lawyer, son, courts. The words of Olivia's message were like sentinels guarding the ruins of his life. Desperation gave way to a new wave of panic. He needed a place to go, a place to hide. He grabbed his phone again and with the last shred of hope called the only number he had left, Chloe. She answered on the third ring, her voice sleepy and irritated. "Ryan, what do you want? It's 2 a.m. Her voice, which hours earlier seemed to promise a fantasy of youth, was now just harsh and inconvenient. "Chloe, I need help," he managed to say, his voice choked. "Olivia? She kicked me out, changed the locks, threw my clothes on the street. I have nowhere to go." There was a silence on the other end of the line, a long, heavy silence. Ryan could almost hear her processing the information, calculating what that meant for her. "What?" she finally said, the tone not of shock or concern, but of annoyance. "Are you kidding me?" "I'm not kidding, Chloe. I'm on the street, literally. Can I come over just for tonight?" The plea in his own voice disgusted him. The silence returned, even longer this time. "Ryan, listen," she said, her voice now cold and distant. "What happened between you and your wife is your problem. I don't want to get involved. Tonight was a mistake. I thought it would be fun, a memory. I didn't think you were going to blow up your life because of it. I'm not a rehab center for failed marriages. Don't call me again." And she hung up. The beep, beep, beep of the phone in his ear was the final sound of the door closing in his face. The fantasy of Chloe, the free and cool woman, collapsed to reveal the truth. She wanted the thrill of the chase, not the responsibility of the captured prey. She wanted the flirtation, not the broken man who came with it. He had been used and discarded by 2 women in the same night, one with surgical and devastating precision, the other with casual and selfish indifference. He stood on the sidewalk, the phone silent in his hand, the world slowly spinning around him. Rock bottom wasn't a place. It was a feeling. It was the understanding that there was no one to call, nowhere to go, no hand to hold. It was the realization that all the bridges he hadn't burned, Olivia had dynamited for him. He was a one-man army, defeated on his own battlefield. With nowhere to go, he walked to the pile of clothes. He crouched down and began rummaging through his belongings, like a trash collector sifting through the wreckage of a life that was once his. He found his wallet, which had fallen out of a jacket pocket. He opened it. Cash, credit cards. At least he wasn't completely helpless. He could go to a hotel. The idea of an anonymous, clean, impersonal hotel room seemed like the only possible refuge. He grabbed a few pieces of clothing, a jacket to protect himself from the cold, and began walking toward the main avenue, where he knew there would be taxis. As he walked, leaving most of his material life behind, thrown on the grass, he felt a final vibration in his pocket. A new message. It wasn't from Olivia. It wasn't from Chloe. It was an unknown number. He opened it, his heart empty of any expectation. It was a video, short, just 15 seconds. He pressed play. The image was grainy, filmed from a car across the street. It showed him, crouched, rummaging through his own clothes on the lawn, the pathetic figure of a defeated man. And then a text overlay appeared on the screen, in bold red letters, "Tour's over, the final humiliation." Someone was watching. Someone was documenting his fall and making sure he knew it. The video wasn't for the world, it was for him. It was the last turn of the knife twisting in the wound. It was the invisible audience applauding the final act of his personal tragedy. He stumbled out of the diner, his body heavy, his mind a fog of shock and humiliation. The street, once just a path home, was now a stage, and he was the only actor, illuminated by the streetlights that seemed like accusing spotlights. As he approached the building, the full scene revealed itself with brutal clarity. It was no longer just a pile of clothes on the lawn. It was an event. Mr. Henderson's window still had a sliver of light. Across the street, someone's silhouette watched from behind a curtain. The couple with the dog, who had previously avoided him, were now standing on the corner talking to another resident and discreetly pointing in his direction. He didn't need to hear the whispers to know what they were talking about. He was the gossip of the night, the condo scandal, the man who was kicked out of his house by his pregnant wife. The house itself was dark, a silent and impenetrable fortress. Every unlit window was a scream that he was no longer welcome, that the life that existed inside had been extinguished. Panic gave way to desperate denial. He grabbed his phone, his sweat-slicked fingers slipping on the screen. He called her, 1, 2, 10 times. Each call went straight to voicemail, her voice recorded in a happier time, sounding like an echo from a parallel universe. He sent messages, a torrent of pleas, anger, and confusion. "Olivia, for God's sake, answer me. What did you do? We can talk. Think about our son." The messages were delivered, but unread. A single grey checkmark next to each bubble, a digital abyss opening between them. It was there, standing in the cold, under the judgmental gaze of the neighbors, that the truth hit him not like lightning but like ice slowly forming in his veins. She wasn't there. She wasn't going to answer. She wasn't coming back. He no longer had a home. He no longer had a family. He no longer had respect. The show he had dreamed of so much, the dream of his life, had been the prologue to the worst nightmare he could imagine. The irony was so overwhelming that he felt like laughing, a dry, broken sound that died in his throat. He walked away, moving like an automaton toward a cheap motel a few blocks away. The room was anonymous, smelling of old carpet and loneliness. He sat on the edge of the bed, his jacket still on, and stared at the wall. The hours dragged on. Night gave way to a grey dawn and then a pale morning. He didn't sleep. He just existed in that vacuum, reliving every stupid decision, every arrogant word. Around 9 in the morning, his phone vibrated on the nightstand. His heart gave a painful leap. It was her. A new message. With trembling hands, he opened it, expecting an ultimatum, an explanation, anything. The message was short, and every word was a nail in his coffin. "Don't bother looking for me. My lawyer is in charge now." Tours over, marriage over, his easy life over. But the story didn't end there. Olivia's revenge wasn't just about one night. It was about the future. In the months that followed, Ryan lived the bureaucratic hell she built for him. Her lawyer, Mr. Harrison, was relentless, using the photos, the messages, and Ryan's own confession about his dream as evidence of his negligent and selfish behavior. He was forced to pay alimony and child support that consumed most of his salary. His apartment, which he loved so much, had to be sold to divide the assets, and he ended up in a rented studio apartment across town. At work, the scandal marked him. The story of how he was kicked out of the house spread, and he became the guy the pregnant wife dumped. People treated him with cold cordiality. He lost the chance for a promotion. Chloe, the ex, completely disappeared from his life, as if she had never existed. The day his son was born arrived. He only found out through a formal notification from the lawyer. He was allowed to see the boy at the hospital for 1 hour, under the watchful eye of Jenna, Olivia's sister. The baby was small, perfect. Ryan held him, and for the first time in months, he felt something other than self-pity and anger. He felt a pang of love, but it was a love stained with loss, a love that was already born, mutilated. Olivia was not in the room. She refused to see him. He could only see his son through scheduled appointments at a family mediation center. Each meeting was a timed torture, a reminder that he was not a father, but a visitor. A year passed. Ryan was a shadow of the man he had been, thinner, with permanent dark circles and a haunted look. One day, leaving his building, he saw her. Olivia was across the street, pushing the stroller. She was different. There was a strength in her posture, a calm on her face that he had never seen before. She was no longer pale or tired. She was radiant. Beside her, holding her hand, was a man. It wasn't a new boyfriend. Ryan recognized him immediately, and the ground seemed to disappear beneath his feet. It was Mr. Harrison, her lawyer, the same relentless man who had dismantled his life in court. They weren't in a business meeting, they were laughing. The lawyer picked up the baby with the naturalness of a father. And then, the final touch, the detail that made Ryan's universe implode. The lawyer leaned in and kissed Olivia. A kiss of love, of intimacy, of partnership. Ryan stood paralyzed, the air trapped in his lungs. The truth hit him with the force of a nuclear explosion. The notification on the phone, the move in 45 minutes, the changed lock, the clothes on the lawn, the final message, the ruthless legal process. It wasn't a plan born of the impulse of a betrayed woman that night. It was an execution, a cold, calculated, and long-standing strategy. He hadn't been caught in a betrayal. He had been lured into a trap. The concert, the ex-girlfriend, he wasn't the protagonist of his own dream. He was just the disposable pawn in someone else's chess game. Olivia didn't leave him because of that night. That night was just the perfect excuse, the moral justification she needed to activate a plan that was already underway. She wanted out of the marriage, she wanted the lawyer, and she gave Ryan the rope to hang himself. The woman he saw as weak and dependent was, in fact, the most brilliant and cruel mind he had ever known. He didn't lose his family. The family was never really his to begin with. He was just a transition piece, and as he watched them walk away, a happy and complete family, he finally understood the true meaning of tours over. His show was over, but hers was just beginning. And so what did you think of this journey? If this story gripped you, made you feel every twist and turn, then your subscription to the channel is our biggest applause. We want to build a community that appreciates strong narratives, that gets emotional together. So if you're one of us, subscribe and hit the bell icon. Now, the question that won't be silenced, from 0 to 10, what score do you give to Olivia's revenge and to Ryan's ending? Comment below, a kiss, and until the next story.